Kyle Whittingham revealed last week that Devon Dampier missed a couple practices, but he never showed up on the Big 12 injury report. Big 12 fans aren't happy about it. How is this whole situation going to play out? We're going to break it down on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time joining this show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. My name is JT Wistrcill, excited to be joined on today's show by Matt Patton, and we got a fun one to talk about. Matt is a writer at Ute Nation, and man, the injury news and Utah football just go hand in hand, Matt. It doesn't matter the year, we cannot escape a quarterback injury controversy. So Kyle Whittingham revealed at his weekly press conference that Devon Dampier wasn't able to practice Tuesday or Wednesday and was only a limited player on Thursday. And he said the injury definitely impacted him against Texas Tech. He did, but then he was never on the injury report. And there was no one listed, probable, questionable, all those things. So obviously Big 12 fans are frustrated. And honestly, Matt, I get the frustration when everyone else has to report these injuries and you don't. I get the frustration. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Big 12 fined Kyle, because this is the first example of someone skirting this Big 12 media rule. And I feel like they might have to make an example out of him. How do you see the situation?
I think it's so much in its infancy that it's difficult to say whether or not they're going to fine him right away. I could see them giving him a warning. I looked at all the other teams in the Big 12 and they seem to have a pretty thorough report. Yeah. And I think that Kyle was probably looking at this as a situation of, well, it's called an availability report, not an injury report. And maybe he just thought, well, Devon Dampier's available. And so I think he's probably just seeing how far he can get without having to do anything. And that's kind of why I kind of see what you're thinking, where a fine might be applicable here, because otherwise he's just going to keep doing that. So if the Big 12 is okay with him just putting a few guys on the list that are out, I guess he put one questionable at the end of the week, added that in there. But
who was that again?
Yeah, if they want to, they added one questionable. It was I can't remember now.
It must have, not of impact anyways.
It wasn't extremely impact. It was a Fafita. I don't remember. But anyway, so I think if they don't, then he's going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Because even at the very least, it sounds like Devon Dampier was going to play. It sounds like it wasn't bad enough to the point of like, okay, he's not going to play. But based on the fact that he's missing practices, even if you still plan on playing him, that is absolutely the definition of probable to me. A lot of people are arguing questionable. Like, it sounds like he was better than questionable to play. It sounds like Utah was always going to roll with him, but he absolutely should have been probable to me. And I just do what Kyle said to us, Matt, that if there was an injury report, Utah would abide by it. That's what he's been saying for the last few years. And the first opportunity he gets, he doesn't abide by it. So that's where I do feel like it's a bad look for Kyle Whittingham. I believe it's a bad look for Utah football when everyone else is just going along with the rules and you don't. And I know we're all about this competitive advantage thing, but there's so many other teams that just don't do this stuff that I see, and they're completely fine. I just think there's this over the top. This even goes back to, some media availability things and just things of that nature. I feel like Utah football goes above and beyond to try and protect and keep things in for the slightest competitive advantage. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to who's the better team. And that was clearly not Utah on Saturday, Matt.
No, it really wasn't. Texas Tech seemed better than them in almost all facets of the game. I think that Utah's finding that they've got a lot of weaknesses, especially in the special teams. I think that gets easily overlooked, and Texas Tech special teams were fantastic. And Utah they got the field goal, but only due to a lucky penalty. So, I see this as it's causing more damage to the fan base than it's worth for the slight competitive advantage, especially if you put guys as probable. I mean, that doesn't really impact anything, but it at least gives the fans a little bit of a feeling of, oh, hey, maybe our quarterback's not perfect. And that way also it protects the players. You look at how much heat Cam Rising was taking, unfortunately, from fans of BYU fans like to attack him, but Utah fans were always, going after him as well. Saying, when are you going to go out and, step it up and just deal with it? And I heard a lot of fans talking a lot of smack against Dampier. And I feel like that was a little bit unmerited now that it's known that he was hurt.
Exactly. I will say just such an interesting thing too, like how hurt was he? He said Kyle said it definitely impacted him. He didn't look as explosive. It's just such a hard combination of, okay, he wasn't as explosive, fair. That Texas Tech defense is also really good, right? I mean, that D line is the best we've seen in some times that Utah's had to take on. That linebacking core is really electric too. And I thought the secondary was pretty good as well overall. So I do think it was a bad combination. It would have been interesting to see a fully healthy Dampier if he was able to try scramble more and to make some plays. I felt like Tech had a pretty good plan to try and contain him, but it's just one of those things we'll never know for sure because he wasn't healthy in this game. Now, thankfully, it was an emphasis on this game because if you go back to the press conference, Josh Furlong did a good job of noting as well on Dampier. Witt doesn't believe Dampier's injury could be a long-term thing, but they don't know. Said he's in a better place this week than he was last week. I do think that's the encouraging thing is like, okay, he was pretty clearly going to play on it last week. I don't think he was ever at a point where he was doubtful for the game, according to Kyle Whittingham, and we wouldn't know because of the injury report, as we said. But this week, if Dampier pops up on it, I feel like he has to this week. If they don't find if he doesn't pop up on the injury report this week, woof, then I'm curious to see what would happen to Utah football then. But I feel like he'll come back this week, and I feel like we'll see a better performance out of Dampier, and not just because the opponent is significantly worse.
Yeah, and at this point, they don't have a competitive advantage to not put him on the report because it was announced in the press conference. So,
which is weird because he did that. Like that's where I don't understand Kyle's whole thinking. He could have not mentioned this at all
after the game.
Yeah.
And maybe because he recognized that the fans were coming after Dampier and saying, "Oh, here we go again. We don't have a quarterback." I think Utah fans seem to be kind of stepping off the ledge a little too quick here.
Oh, agreed.
But it's understandable why, because they've gone through so much over the last 2 seasons, and now to have this third time where it's kind of feeling the same after watching a game like that. But I do think it's important. You made a great point. That Texas Tech defense, they were very good. They were assignment sound. They were very good tacklers. I don't know if Utah will face as good of a defense for the rest of the regular season.
I mean, Matt, I think they're clearly the class of the Big 12. Like, I don't think that's close right now. And Iowa State's been good, but they won by, 3 against Iowa, who I don't think is anything but a middle to lower tier Big 10 team. I mean, even TCU I was very impressed by the SMU win with them, but I still want to see them go into a hostile environment and do that right now. I still feel like in this terms of like top 4 teams in this conference, I actually still would have Utah there. I know BYU fans would be like, we're ranked higher. And I would just say, can you play someone better than an FCS? First. Or basically, what'd you say?
Yeah. Play someone first.
Yeah, play someone like even Stanford. I barely counts as a P4 team. Now I know Utah's does too, but at least we had to go to UCLA for that one. So I just look at this go. It's still like, hey, Utah is still a contender in the Big 12 conference, but Matt, they need to get a lot better if they want to beat Texas Tech, because that game was not a blowout overall. But the fact that the final score still ended up being a blowout has me concerned if Utah was to see Texas Tech at a neutral site, because it still would be in Texas if they met again in Arlington.
That's a great point. And even though it was 13-10 with 10 minutes to go, Texas Tech looked like the better team all game long. They just dominated the entire game. Utah's defense looked spectacular. Obviously got worn down at the end. Whittingham kind of alluded to that he felt like they gave up a little at the end. But you kind of have to understand why they would do that when they had pushed and pushed and pushed, and then the offense just would not give them any help. But yeah, they've got to improve, especially offensively, and they've got to be willing to throw the ball down the field.
They got to improve, got to make plays down the field, and those improvements got to come quick. And hopefully it comes with a healthy quarterback too. But if Devon Dampier can't go next game, a couple games, whatever it may be, and that sounds like right now he can, but if something were to happen, how would the backup quarterbacks perform for Utah? We're going to talk about that in one moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at Square. This episode is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that can truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game day, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. I mean, I know we all have our favorite local coffee shop that we come to, or our favorite bar during football season where everyone is wearing, whether it's Utah covers or whatever it may be. The energy is incredible in there, and there's nothing like giving back to small businesses and supporting supporting these places that make the atmosphere so special. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real, actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices, jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time in just a couple taps. I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about college football games for as low as $25. The app makes it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying. I went to a P4 football game this year for under $10 thanks to Game Time. You can take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Devon Dampier, according to Kyle Whittingham, is already doing better this week than last week. So he should play at West Virginia. The bye comes at a good time. Right after that, you could argue that you want the bye this week, but I'm okay with us doing West Virginia, being able to get that icky taste of Saturday's game out of our mouths, Utah football's mouths, all of it, and hopefully put up a strong performance against a West Virginia team that right now I feel like Utah is clearly better than. But if something were to happen to Devon Dampier and we have to turn to the backup quarterbacks, how would they fare? And Matt, as we sit here right now, I don't think it would be last year's disappointment where you only win 2 conference games, but at the same time, like, I don't feel like at all this Utah team without Devon Dampier is going to be able to be a top 4 team in this conference. Maybe Utah can get back to what they were in the 23 season where they beat everyone except for the best teams in the Pac-12 that year. But it's hard for me, Matt, to go, oh yeah, this Utah team, they have the pieces around whoever's in at quarterback to overcome not having a dynamic signal caller.
Yeah, I think we learned against Texas Tech that there, and this could have been because of Dampier's injury, but I think there's been enough data, enough games played to see why Utah converted so many defensive players to play offense.
Yeah.
Clearly, they didn't trust the guys they had, especially at receiver. And so they decided to try and get some guys. Even the touchdown that got called back, who was that thrown to?
Benny.
So they don't trust those guys. And if you lose a piece like Dampier, who do you go to? You kind of have to just be a running team, which FICKLIN, I'll give him this. In his limited playing time, he's looked a lot more prepared than Isaac Wilson did at the beginning of last season. You think about even against SUU last season, Isaac Wilson struggled. And maybe Wilson has improved this year. We haven't gotten to have a look at him yet. I don't know if that's because they've been wanting to give FICKLIN the opportunities just to get some playing time, or if FICKLIN has actually passed him on the depth chart. But I do feel like with FICKLIN on the roster, they've got a little bit of a better quarterback situation if Dampier were to go down.
Yeah, I think then what's interesting is it just should have been Brandon Rose last year, as we saw. What some guys are just gamers, some aren't. Isaac wasn't last year. Could Isaac be this year? I think potentially. Matt, the question also is like, who would Utah trot out there? Now this whole saga with the backup quarterback's been very weird this year. A reminder: Isaac won the job according to Kyle. But then all we've seen so far this year is FICKLIN. There's actually one exception that I'll talk about in a moment, but we've seen a lot of FICKLIN. Witt said potentially preserving Isaac's red shirt, but I'm like, if he's your backup quarterback, I don't really think many backup quarterbacks are able to preserve their red shirt on the season. So I thought that was a very interesting comment. So what's happened as of lately would lead me to think that Bird is the backup. The true freshman's dynamic. He's made some plays and he came in the last game when it was out of reach. But man, I go back to one thing, that game against UCLA. For those of you that remember, Dampier's helmet popped off. They sent Isaac Wilson in the game. Now, they motioned about and Hunter Andrews was going to take the snap. But to me, when you had to make that decision with your feet close to the fire, they put in Isaac Wilson. I believe if there was an injury at quarterback, Isaac Wilson would be the starter.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, actually. Isaac Wilson is a good quarterback. He really struggled last season because he wasn't prepared. But I actually think that another full season, another spring and fall and summer with the guys, he's had a lot more time in the program, and he's had that opportunity to be humbled. And I think that when you look at the talent that he had in high school, you can't say it's just going to completely be a waste just because of one difficult season. And so I think Wilson now is a red shirt. No, not a red shirt. I guess it would hopefully a red shirt sophomore.
Yeah.
If they can preserve that, yeah, he should be a pretty good backup.
There's
you
a
want
lot
an
of
experienced guy.
There's a lot of quarterbacks in college football that I feel like eventually go on to be good because they got to redshirt their freshman year. Isaac should have never been thrust out there. He did not play well last year, but he should have never been in that position. There were other things wrong with that Utah offense last year. One of them also being like already Utah's more rushing touchdowns this year than last year. Like that's crazy. That's just how much better the ground game is in 2025. But I do feel like Wilson can make that sophomore leap. And after what happened last year, I just don't feel good. And I'm not trying to hold against Bird, but it's just a fact. Like, I don't feel good throwing a true freshman out there against P4 defenses. I know Bird was fun against Cal Poly. Cal Poly versus the Big 12 is a wide chasm of a leap. And I feel like I'd rather have Isaac go out there. He's seen P4 football. He's had to learn an entirely new offense once again, but he took his lumps last year. He learned. I think you said it best, Matt. The talent is still there. Isaac shouldn't have had to go out there last year. I think he can make that leap. And if he comes out there, I do believe Utah could, let's say Dampier couldn't play this week, hypothetically. It reminds me a couple years ago of when Utah won at Washington State with Bryson Barnes. I actually believe that Washington State team is better than what Utah was seeing this year when they go out to Morgantown. But if Isaac Wilson was the guy out there, I feel like that Utah could still win the game this weekend. Yeah,
I agree. I think they absolutely could. West Virginia is a little bit tougher at home. But if especially on the road like this, you want to keep that freshman sitting on the bench if you can. Now, do you think there's any chance that Utah would consider putting Nate Johnson back at quarterback if Dampier were injured long term?
I think there's a shot because that was something I was really big on at the beginning of the year. But the fact that right now it seems like they like Hunter Andrews, like just as running that wildcat more than Nate Johnson. I'd love Nate to get more opportunities. I think Kyle Whittingham hates turning the ball over. Nate fumbling against Wyoming, I think it was Wyoming, I think hurt his case a little bit. I hope we get to see more Nate Johnson in this offense, just that speed, that athleticism. It's still in there. Like I can't believe that it's just gone and not something this Utah team can find a way to utilize. So I want to see more Nate Johnson, but it feels like right now that Isaac would be the guy. I actually would be fascinated to watch a game in which Dampier was out. I do not want to watch a game, but it would be very interesting to see what Utah would do because I don't know how many times, especially in a game where it's like, I don't know how many times we have to throw the ball. Like, how many different ways is Utah just going to try to run the ball, to hand it off and do different things? And West Virginia's defense, I'll also say, is better than their offense. Their offense is not great. Their defense has made a couple of plays so far on the season, too. So it's just going to be interesting to see what this Utah team comes with. And also, Matt, let's just do one final thing on Dampier. I still look at Saturday and go, okay, that was more good Texas Tech than bad Utah. I still think Devon Dampier can be a really good Big 12 quarterback. Maybe Heisman guy, all of that. Probably not based on what happened, but also the fact that he was injured does give me hope that he can continue to ascend and hopefully become the guy that can help this Utah football team maybe get back to a Big 12 title game.
Yeah, he was playing really safe in the first half of that game. And yeah, he threw 2 interceptions, but it was kind of in panic time, which you're going to see that because it's desperation, just trying to hope something will happen. And so I think he's at least being really smart with the ball. And I don't think by any means that fans should be giving up on Dampier just because of one poor performance.
I absolutely agree with that. He is too special and transcendent of a talent, and he has seen bad defenses and then great defense to me. Like, can we wait till he sees someone in the middle? Maybe it's West Virginia this week. Yeah. I think ASU is going to be a similar thing. Like, it's the best. Dampier has only so far seen the worst defenses he will play this year and the best defense he will play this year. I want to see how he's going to do against some more middle competition in the middle. And West Virginia's defense is probably more towards the bottom, but is a step up from probably who Utah had the first 3 games, especially on the road. How is this Utah team going to fare on the road? Me and Matt are going to talk a little Utes versus Mountaineers in one moment. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda has you covered because Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IHS top safety picks plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Well, Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. You can make every drive feel like anything but with the smooth handling and intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season. Fall, winter, summer, you name it. Mazda has you covered. Like our players, we sweat every detail at Mazda because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. You can head over and check out Mazda's inventory today. Matt, West Virginia is an interesting team. They beat Robert Morris. Nice. Should do that. You lose to a MAC team on the road. I know Ohio's a good MAC team. It's not a bad MAC team, but you lose to a MAC team on the road. That's not good. You come back the next week, you get a monster win at home in the backyard brawl against Pitt. Then you go on the road and you were a double-digit underdog at Kansas. And I think the Mountaineers, I'm sure, felt disrespected, but all you did was prove Vegas right. You lose 41-10 in that game. And Matt, I look at this game now. Utah's already double-digit favorites, according to FanDuel as of this moment. Utah 10.5 favorite. That line has dropped. I think a lot of the reason that being some of this Dampier injury stuff going on right now. But Witt said he's already doing better, so I expect him to play as we sit here right now. I feel like Utah should take care of business against West Virginia this week. But what do you make of this matchup, and what do you make of the Mountaineers?
Yeah, I think they're exactly what I would call just kind of a middle of the pack type of a team. They've got some good players, a lot of good guys that Rich Rod brought with him from Jacksonville State. They bring a lot of pressure. Really surprised to see they got 6 sacks against Eli Holstein with Pitt in that backyard brawl. I think they got 4 sacks against Ohio. And I think you need to be careful with that Ohio game because that Ohio team is actually looking pretty good. They were good last season. I think they're one of the best in the MAC. And so
they played Ohio State close, to your point. Like that was a game for the 3 quarters.
It was. They had to fight. So a lot of people looked at that and said, oh, West Virginia, they're terrible. They lost to Ohio. Well, Ohio's not terrible. And so I look at this West Virginia team and they're dangerous is what I would say, especially depending on how Utah will react to that type of a frustrating loss that they had against Texas Tech.
I think it's a good point. I think the thing that gives me the most hope going into this matchup is the fact that the West Virginia offense has simply not been good. They have already issues with quarterback. I was on with my buddy Mountaineer Paul 2 weeks ago. He already wanted to bench the quarterback at the time, and their offensive performance at Kansas did not inspire much confidence. So to me, Matt, this is a game, and their offensive line's not great. This is a game where Utah needs to establish other pass rushers. The question coming into the year was who's going to step up on the defensive line. Well, John Henry Daly's run away with the Sac Lake City mayor race, but I want to know who else is going to generate consistent pressure for this Utah team. Logan Fano, maybe he was coming off the injury, still a little banged up. He looked great against UCLA, but against a much better Texas Tech offensive line, I didn't hear his name much at all, as well the other pass rushers. There was no interior rush for Utah. This was a game where Utah very much missed like a Keanu Tanavasa could have been really good for Utah in that last game. I think this is a game where Utah's defense can get right. I want to see the missed tackles cleaned up as well. But the biggest thing, honestly, might be, Matt, establishing more pass rush, because you cannot give some of these talented quarterbacks in the Big 12 just for the rest of the season the amount of time to throw that Morton and eventually Hammond had in the pocket.
Yeah, way too much time given up. Luckily, Marchiol and they might go with Henderson, the former Texas A&M quarterback. They went with him in the last, and then in the end of the game against Kansas in that blowout. Henderson's the kind of guy that'll give you some trouble if you don't contain him. A good runner, but hasn't really proven to be a great passer. So
28 yards on the season, to your point.
Yeah, these guys, they're not at all like the Texas Tech quarterbacks. Marchiol's really struggled handling pressure, and that's why Rich Rod was non-committal in his press conference as to who will be the starter there. And exactly like you said, that really means that Utah's got the opportunity here. This is the type of game where they could find somebody else in the interior and even on that left side of the end and get more pressure on these quarterbacks that are already struggling.
And I think that's the hope, is you jump out to, you mentioned the main starter, the guy who's been their Mountaineers guy, Marchiol. He's 2 for 2 touchdown to interception ratio, and Henderson, a good runner, but only 28 passing yards for him. This is an opportunity for a Utah defense that can really make something happen, right? I mean, we saw what Utah did to Wyoming. It should be a similar performance to Wyoming, in my opinion. Like, I don't see why West Virginia should score more than 15 points, barring the offense taking a step back. And speaking of the offense, Matt, this is a game where the offense has to tune a lot of things up. We come back from the bye, and you're going to get that Arizona State team in your house. Like we mentioned, the tackling has to be better against Sam Levitt, because he'll make some guys miss. We know that. But then you got to get a BYU matchup. Like, there's a lot of things coming up for this Utah football team, and they need to use this is a get-right game. West Virginia's defense better than the offense. You mentioned the blitzing dynamic as well. This is a big week for Jason Beck. Hopefully Devon Dampier will play. That's the expectation to get the deep passing game going because they should be a well-balanced offense. The Utah offensive line is still very good. Not maybe a top 5, top 3 unit in the country based on what happened last week, but still very good. I expect Utah to run the ball, and that way there should be opportunities to make some throws on the outside, hopefully. Right, Matt?
Oh, yeah. Utah's got to figure that out because this is another team that's actually pretty good against the rush. They give up only 130 yards rushing per game so far this season, and they're very good against third down. They only give up a 28% third down percentage conversion rate. And so what Utah has done well in the 3 games that they won is they were able to establish the run and set up really good third down situations, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, that are easy to convert. And that's why their third down conversion percentage was pretty high. And against Texas Tech, they just could not get that going. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Beck wants to keep the same type of let's establish the run, get ourselves in those easy 3rd and short situations, or if he says, look, we've got to figure out a way to get the ball down the field because against a good rush defense, even West Virginia, especially in their own home, in their backyard, you've got to figure out some other way than just doing these little dink and dunk short passes and the runs that just weren't effective against Texas Tech.
They got to figure something out, and I do think they will this weekend, Matt. I think Utah is going to get a win. Do you feel the same way?
I do. Yeah, this should be a game that they bounce back well. The thing is they actually match up against West Virginia much, much better than they did against Texas Tech. All of their strengths are, for the most part, other than the rush defense for West Virginia, are West Virginia's weaknesses. And so I think Utah does win. It'll be a little closer, though, than I think the spread's looking right now.
I hope not. I'd rather not have my heart go through what happened last weekend, but it'll be fun to watch either way. Matt, thank you so much for making the time. Please let everyone know where they can find you at and where they can find more of your work.
Yeah, please head to Ute Nation, utenation.com. That's where we're putting on all of our new stuff. Just head over there and you can catch my article that I'll be putting out in the next couple of days on more detailed outlook of West Virginia.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. It's great to be on here.
Always great having you. That's going to do it for this Locked On Utes. On tomorrow's show, former Utah defensive back Josh Nurse joins me, talks about where exactly X and O's wise Utah needs to get better, and also talks about how the Utah football team can do what the current Utah football team can do what they did back in 2019 when Utah lost their conference opener and then went on to make the Big 12 title game, Pac-12 at the time, Big 12 this year. That's the hope. That's going to do it for our show. We hope to see you again tomorrow.